that. Hi everyone, how are we doing today? Today I'm working on a game that I released about 6 years ago that was made for a game jam on itch.io called the Minimalistic Jam 3. And when I submitted that game, I got a second place, which was pretty cool for me because I had never done a jam before. And I got a lot of great feedback on the project. People thought it was pretty fun. Some of these comments really make me smile. Really cool just to kind of look at what I had done back then and just think about what to do, what could be improved, and I've been wanting to reboot this for a while. So this game is a classic horizontal shmup style game where you go through the stage and have cargo attached to your ship, and you try to get to the end with as much cargo as you can so you can buy upgrades and things like that. So along the way you pick up pickups, and you can do you can boost and use a shield to block enemies or prevent yourself from taking damage hitting asteroids and things like that. Everything in the game required to use only 3 colors for each sprite. So even this logo, each piece is a separate sprite, only using 3 colors. So here's a quick preview of the game. So here's your little ship and your cargo that swings around with a bit of physics on it. And you can boost through here. All of the stage sections are procedurally generated, so I made each one of the sections, and then they kind of get added to a stack, or like a deck, essentially, and then it chooses the sections, and each stage gets a little bit longer than the last one and favors more dangerous sections. So you just try to get to the end here. And when you do, have the ability to buy some upgrades and things like that from the Flying D. And it's not without some bugs and problems, but the game was made in 3 days. I believe it was 3 days. And, you know, that limitation just kind of creates a lot of kind of just forced forces the creativity, you know, so that you're working within those limitations to make something short and sweet, and, you know, try to just focus on creating something that's complete as it is. Buy a couple upgrades here, and then, you know, move on to the next stage. It'll stop and do the procedural generation for the next stage, and then you just kind of continue on like that. So that's the game that I wanted to expand. What I've been working on is rebuilding some of those things. Have a lot of the mechanics and things built with a little bit of just a lot of prototype graphics and other things that I've added. So I have this quick little sprite sheet that I put together from the original, and then I have my sprite sheet that I've been working on for this. Pretty simple stuff. Just to have some basic elements that I can use to create things with. So what we have is, you know, projectiles, power bombs, scoring, pickups for score pickups when you defeat enemies, and we have the ability to actually destroy an enemy and take parts off of them, like special weapons and things that will have like limited ammo. So that'll be kind of an extra thing that we can have for that. And to build upon the original game, my thought was that we could have some of those ship parts that you pick off of enemies be like cargo and things that you could try to keep safe and get to the end of the stage, and or bring to a station or something, and be able to cash those in and get points for them and buy upgrades and other weapons, new ships, and all that kind of stuff. So that's some of the basic stuff there. We've also kind of improved some parallax stuff here, where we have like a parallax background that's based off of like layered shaders that are using Voronoi, so that we can have like stars and things like that that are like endless scrolling but never repeat. And we can also have a little bit of drift, so for like foreground debris and things like that. And another concept that I wanted to play around with is having the player move along a spline, so the camera and the area that the player can actually use is a spline. So the path that we travel on goes along that, and I put a good amount of work into things to support that. There's some editor scripts here that allow us to visualize the path that we're taking, and then also any data that we've embedded along the way. So these green kind of overlapping sections are actually different segments of the stage. And within those sections of the stage, we can put enemies or pickups or other things. So this allows us to basically use one scene for the entire game, but have the stage itself be a data asset that we can use. So that gives me the ability to do things like this, where I can come in here and show everything that we have created for the stage, which includes these enemies here. There's also another enemy over here, and some pickups. These white blocks are just like proof of concept to show that we can have things like structures, or like an asteroid that you can fly through, or inside of an alien or something like that. So these are placed actually on the spline. So each one of these has some data here that's actually saying what distance along the spline are the objects, any rotational tweaks, and like what kind of vertical offset based on the perpendicular to the wherever they are on the spline. So what this ends up getting us to at this point is a pretty basic version. We're getting close to like an MVP, and my hope is to put that out there and get some feedback from people so they can check that out. And it looks like we do have a problem here. One of the events that I just set up seems to be related to my projectiles and things. So I'll have to go ahead and figure out what's happening there. We just didn't name this event. So what I've been working on here is an event for just having a combo hit counter in the UI, so we can have like a score with a multiplier, and each time you hit an enemy, it updates that counter, and we can animate that. We can even show the damage type with some fun effects, or do things like that in the future to enhance it. Like some visual juice there on that to make it look a little cooler. So let's see if that resolves it. There might be another one like that. We just changed a lot of them. Yeah, so pick up this weapon off of the enemy. moving through this spline, like rotating through this area. This is kind of meant to be kind of an extreme example, turning around through that area. And that's kind of like the basics of what I've been working on so far. But in the future, what I'm thinking is we'll have these splines and these paths that the player can is moving along. And in some scenarios, there might even be like a spline that splits off, so the player can choose to go another direction, which could be really cool, I think, in scenarios like mini bosses or bosses where, you know, you're fighting the boss and you actually get the choice if you want to chase after them when they turn away or try to escape. Or, you know, you might have a situation where you just have a choice of direction to go, and that could even play in more to the way the stages work, where you could have things like, kind of like in Mario, where you have Mario on the Super Nintendo, where you have the stages on the map, but instead of having the stages be the points of interest, you could have the stages be the traveling between those points of interest. So the player could actually like plot a course across multiple stages, whichever way they want to go, to whatever area they want to go to. And that would be like a dynamic, stitched together set of paths that the player takes. And there would still be choice within the stage, but it would indicate that you know, this is your chosen path. So then you could have these situations where there are Easter eggs on the side, or even like really dangerous areas, storms and other things that you may not want to normally go into, but perhaps you're being chased by an enemy, or something like that. Playing on that further, you could have a situation where there's like fleets or other pirates or things like that on the map, where if you encounter them along your travel, then that's where you will fight them in the stage. And that could even include like a hunter or a bounty hunter pirate that's chasing you, and therefore you could have like it actually be advantageous to take one of those detours to try to lose them, or avoid them altogether. So those are some things that I've been thinking about for the concepts. And, so we can get into building more enemies, more weapons, and thinking about how we want some of the scoring and multiplier mechanics to work, and any sort of roguelike elements that we might want to add in, to kind of enhance the whole concept of building up your ship and having like extra parts that you're adding onto it and grabbing from other enemies, and kind of customizing your ship to be how you want. So I'm going to keep working on this. I think the next thing really is just getting this hit counter to work in the HUD. So gonna be kind of just charging right into that. So we've created a little script for that. And just need to place it up here. Doesn't have to be pretty. Everything here is really just a proof of concept, and we'll expand everything and get everyone's feedback and try to make this thing awesome for everybody to play. So what I'm thinking here with this hit counter is it's likely going to end up being like something not inside this HUD box. It'll like pop up somewhere on the side of the screen out of the way. But we'll animate the hits so that when the hit counter goes up, it will show kind of the damage type that's being used. So we'll have just a regular update for most of them, but then when you use like a bomb or some sort of special or something, there might be like an effect behind it, like an explosion or like a little shock if it's like electrical damage, or a little other effect for whatever type of damage it is in the future. So just kind of wanted to like leave the door open to do those kind of things. So what we'll do here is we'll create animator for it, a progress bar for the countdown as the damage goes down, and then just an element to show the hit, and likely some other images and things that will turn on and off using the animator. So we'll use this pixely font that I created. And just kind of center that in here. Just so that we have something that we can see. For that. So then that's the counter. Probably do some sort of arcade style gradient text for this. So I'll actually need to like create a bitmap of all of the numbers. But for now, we'll just use simple text. Also need a progress bar image just to show how much time is left. We can just put that kind of on the bottom. Probably put a container around it or something. Pick a fun color. Or maybe we'll actually have this color change based off of the size of it. But for now, just make a cool blue. And let's call this the time left progress. We do need an image to be able to do what we want here. So I think I have like a white block. I thought I did. Create a blank white texture that we can use. For that. That way we can make this thing filled, horizontal. So we have a progress bar that can go up and down. Assign that. We have an animator. And we have a few things that we want to set up in here. So a trigger for updating and clearing the hit amount. And some sort of blend tree or something for the damage type effect. Start creating some animations here. To start, we like hit counter idle. It's just kind of a default state. And then we want to set up these other animation states. So we need a trigger for update hit and clear hit. And an integer parameter for the damage type. And those damage types are actually brought in from enums. So what we do is we use, we have a struct here, hit counter update info, that always gets passed into this event data. And so we're passing in which player number it is, what was the last type of damage that we had, the hit counter from that player, and then a calculated progress based off of the duration of time that we're allowing hits to be counted as a combo. So all of this stuff is basically just event data that's being passed in. And the damage source is another struct that has the different damage types, which team is doing the damage, the entity ID of whatever was doing the damage. That way, if you die, we can, track and say you were killed by this enemy, that enemy. So all that stuff is in here, the damage amount, everything. So that gets used for actually doing damage, but also for publishing the events into the UI so that we can determine what we want to do. So the code for this is relatively simple. We're just changing the fill amount of the progress bar if we have progress. Otherwise, we're clearing it out and hitting that clear trigger event in the animator. We'll update the hit counter text and animate the hit when we have a hit. So every time it gets updated, and then if the last damage source type, if the damage type is not the same, then we're changing the integer for the last damage type. So with knowing how we're going to set that up, we know we'll have some sort of trigger that's going to come from any state and go into a state which we'll use for updating the hit, which will be like, essentially, we want the text to change, which we're already doing via the script, but we want a little animation so that the text kind of pops a little bit each time the hit goes up. So really all that is just showing running a small little animation and then exiting that state, going back into an idle state. That's just, back to normal. So we'll set that up to be update hit trigger. And it doesn't need any duration or anything. It can just go right into the state. And this animation will be something just pretty simple, like hit counter update. And just take this text. I think we'll just change the font size. So we'll do something pretty quick here. Yeah, just a little pop. That is really it. So then on the idle, we reset the font size back to what it should be. It's default. And just need to make sure that these animations don't loop. So then that is the hit counter update. And when it's done, it just finishes there. So we'll say it has an exit time of 1 with no transition time. And we'll call clear hit anytime there is or when we run out of time. So that's pretty easy. Let's create a new animation for that. Counter clear. And that. thinking use that font size again and just have it shrink down to nothing. So go from 24 to 0. Then again, just make sure that that's not going to loop on us. And we'll set that up so that the clear is similar to this situation. Care when it exits. Just transition to it directly. And then when this is done, it's going to exit this state. But we don't want it to go back to the idle because that is going to show the text count again. So we just need to create a dummy state for it to sit in. Because when we reset this trigger, it can come from any state anyway, so this should work. We might need some sort of just blank animation for it, just so that it doesn't complain. Wait for it to finish, and that will be it. So it plays the whole animation and exits. This is actually no hit. I think this should be the default state. Actually, so the default state is nothing, no hits, blank. Then when we hit, we'll update the hit counter, doing that pop, and then it'll keep going back to this hit counter idle where the text stays its normal size. Then we need to do something with this damage type. So I'm thinking for that we'll use a layer, damage type layer. Make sure that that thing's always cranked. And all that's going to be is a blend tree based off of that parameter. So it doesn't want it to be, doesn't like it to be an integer. So we'll need to change this to a float. So we just have to make a little bit of an update here. This is currently an integer, so let's do, we'll just cast the damage type to an int, and then it'll get turned into a float. Coming into this, and then that way, all we'll really need to do is set up the thresholds for the damage types. So what we'll have is none, collision, kinetic, energy, and bomb. So We could do things like have the different types of damage have different effects, different fonts, or like different colors. So I think for now, I'll just do colors. So what we'll have is, it looks like 5. So we have the indexes like that. And we'll have just little animations for each color. There's probably some other ways we could do this via code, but I'm just trying to keep this stuff in the animator, because we're going to want to not just do colors in the future. We're going to want to do something more animated, perhaps even like particle effects and things. All right, so I'm thinking that that should actually work as long as everything's assigned. Guess we'll see. Right, so this thing should be handling all of our events. I mean, it looks solid to me so far, so let's see. What we get. Oh, hit counter went up. All right, but when it blanked out, it just went back to showing the 5 instead of zeroing out and getting hidden. So I think that should be easy to fix. Let's just create another one. Hit counter, no hit, and that'll just keep the font size 0. Right. I think that'll do it. Then we need to start assigning damage types, like that laser should be an energy type, and when we do that, we'll start seeing some colors. So 5, 0, yep. Okay, awesome. That is working very well. Awesome, okay. And then obviously, the hits should be scored, and we should have multiplier levels. So we actually will probably need another text element to show, like, probably this will probably need to be bigger or even get bigger and bigger as the hit count goes up, and then have another text element that somewhat overlaps it in the bottom right, I'm thinking. That'll show like an x3 x4, and that'll be like your score multiplier for based off your hits. We do kind of want to do something with the multipliers, but I think I'm going to table that one until we actually know what we want to do for the scoring system. I think probably the thing to do for now, though, is just make it so that when the hit counter zeroes out, we apply the score to the player. So what we're doing for that, so the player manager is actually handling the hit counter itself for each player, and has a default delay. Right now we give them 1 second, which actually reminds me that our progress is not working. Because we're not passing it in here. We should see this progress bar count down. and then pop back up every time we hit an enemy, and then start counting down when we haven't hit anything for a while. Okay, yeah, that works. Okay, so let's apply that scoring thing next. So this is counting down the progress, but when we hit 0, when this timer is out, we know we're going to have a hit. So because this is hit counter greater than 0, and we already have an event and an event to update the score. Do that. It should really be probably somewhere else, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. I'll just take the score event and score. So for now, we'll just say that the score that we're going to add is the hit counter, and then we'll add a hit multiplier. We'll use 1 for that for now. We might end up making it a float, so we can be like 1.5, 2.5 as we scale up. But for now, we'll do that, and then we'll do multiplier. So we're going to add score equaling the counter times the hit multiplier, and then update the UI with the new score. That should already work out of the box too. My main thing with this whole project is I've been trying to use everything as event-based as possible and use pooling for all of the projectiles and enemies and everything, so that we can kind of keep with the very low memory footprint as much as we can. I mean, I know that, you know, obviously Unity is going to have its own overhead, but just trying to keep it simple. And as flexible as possible too. So when this counts down, yep, you get a score for that. It's wonderful. Score's piling up. It's wonderful. Get that little ranking up there. So that's cool. That's another thing to commit. Obviously, when we complete the stage or die, we'll also want to apply whatever score we have and reset it, or even taking damage, I think. Although that's kind of contentious, because in a lot of games you keep your hit multiplier even if you die. It really is just based on time. So I think we'll keep that as it is for now. We have for our stage is a state machine, so that when we're loading, we can have like loading events, initialization, playing and paused states, starting and ending, and likely going to have some other ones for transitions and things like that. But what we could do is say that when we are ending the stage, in here, we already have a stage ending event. So we could, well, first we need to fix these so that they're not editable. But what we can do is make this event so that we subscribe to that event in the player manager, so that when the stage is ending, we'll make sure that score gets updated too. So yeah, that's great. So then we know it's just stage ending state. That's really easy. I think we should use ended, not ending, because, you know, if the player shoots a bomb like right as the stage is ending and they kill a bunch of extra guys, I think that's fine. It'd be just fun. So let's do ended. And we'll create an event for that. Or we could just actually use this, but it needs to take in generic object. That's optional. We just need to make sure we unsubscribe from it so that we don't have a bunch of duplication happening. Shutting down or restarting levels or, you know, quitting to the menu and coming back to the game, since this is a static instance kind of manager for the player. Alrighty, so now if we end the stage, this will happen, but we can't really test this quite yet because I don't have a stage end condition being met that's triggering this. So I think right now we kind of go into the playing state, enabling and disabling the player control, but nothing is changing the state of that other than a game over, going to the game over state. So we're going to need something like a condition. So like you have some basic stages where when you get to the end of the stage, it's just a trigger, like you reached this point or you reached the end of this line. The of course the other scenario is you defeated the boss. If it happens to be a stage where you have to defeat the boss, because I'm thinking a lot of times you might have a situation where you have like a big fleet or a boss and you wear them down, but you may not defeat them, and so then you return. So there might be like bosses and other things where you just have to endure and not die and get through it, and then maybe later in the game you're powerful enough to go back and actually take them out. Or you wear them down over time, attack them a few times, and then of course they're going to repair slowly over time, but it kind of, you know, lets you have this kind of concept of, instead of just having a stage that you beat once, that you can like go back, because then we can have other fun mechanics like that with the shops and bases. I mean, we could even get into having like areas on the map where, you know, maybe that fleet goes and attacks one of the NPC stations or something like that, and you know, permanently destroys it, so you can't use it anymore. And then of course if all of them get destroyed, then you have nowhere to respawn or something like that. Although right now I guess we're respawning right into the stage. So, you know, we're still thinking about some of those broader, more arching mechanics, and I think those kind of things are things we'll get player feedback from, and you know, tweak the game. As with all of the mechanics, you know, we want to make this game as fun as it can be for the players. You know, I'm not just making this game for myself. So we're charging towards that MVP. At least one good fun stage for people to try out. Obviously these weapons are going to need to be like, you know, bigger and more fun and more flashy. So the only things I have left on my my docket for today really is getting that stage transition in so that when we get to the end of a stage, we know it's the end of the stage. So we can stack the score, we can finish the stage, and then we can go either to the next stage if there is one, or prompt the player to kind of choose their next destination, like go to a map. My thought there is that we can use a concept of a graph, whether even if it's just a menu for now, it can still under the hood be a graph of nodes for the stages. So the stage connects to these stages. So you complete one stage, one area, one section, and then you can go on to choose any number of the other connected stages to go to. And then if we want to expand that in the future to embrace the concept of plotting a route, we can do that by essentially creating a path of those stages, which could be kind of nice, especially since that could be something that could play into the more pro type player situation where stringing together multiple stages on a longer route could be rewarded both by time and scored with bonuses and things like that, just for like getting through the stages and getting through the area, and maybe apply a multiplier or something to your overall score for that, so that it rewards you for getting through the stages quickly, but also committing to that longer to the longer travel, longer route, instead of taking it cautiously stage by stage. Which I should also mention, another mechanic I've been messing around with is having a throttle. So right now you can use a controller, which obviously is the recommended way to play this game, and the bumpers or the triggers will speed up and slow down your ship. And right now you can slow down almost all the way to a dead stop, and you can speed up, and it's like totally kind of more of a linear thing for your speed. But I've also thought about having it be like more like a throttle with like a high, low, and middle speed, and then have stages where you can only move where you may not be able to go, but basically almost stop in some stages. And that would make sense because it would be like a stage where you're being chased by something, or there's enemies coming from behind, or maybe there's a black hole or a storm or something chasing you from behind. All kinds of things like that, to consider, just to have different types of stages and kind of a boost mechanic or something like that. So I'm going to take a little break and make some coffee and probably get back to it, but just wanted to like kind of show everybody what I've been working on, the concepts that I'm going, and just let me know what you think about it, and if you have any ideas that you think would be really cool. I'm making this game for you, so like I want to engage the community and get everybody's feedback, and just kind of build this game really quick, but I don't want to leave anything out that could be awesome. So let's talk about it and work through it. You guys have a good day, and I'll see you next time.